Hey, welcome all and welcome in. It's another edition of the Spin Cycle. Andrew Southwick, R.C. Williams with you once again. And again, I got to apologize. We missed yesterday. We were going to go on about 5 p.m. And this is just right now this week I'm doing a lot of traveling. So my schedule is crazy bonkers. And to the extent I haven't even slept in, I don't know, probably a good 36 hours, which is what I hope to be able to do when we are done, RC. But hopefully the Lord will give me enough energy to have our conversation here. But yeah, go ahead.
My friend, you are a machine. I don't know how you do it. Juliana and I spend a lot of time on the road, but man, you are the road warrior this
Well,
week. So,
my wife and I were talking that it's been kind of like my old touring days when I was touring with a band. You drive for 8 hours, you stop somewhere for three, you drive
yep.
again for eight, you stop somewhere. There were entire rooms that we rented on the road where we were only there for 2.5 hours just to get a little bit of sleep on the road. So anyway, it feels a little bit like that. The only thing that's different is I'm not in my 20s anymore, so it takes a little bit more of a toll. But
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, I want to RC. I want to start here with what I think is the most important takeaway from all the Fauci file nonsense. Now, Fauci diaries come out, then he's got his hearing and he pleads the fifth. Couple of things
hmm
on Fauci pleading the fifth. Number one, he was given a full pardon by Joe Biden's auto pen, probably. But the interesting thing was it was a presumptive pardon. So Fauci wasn't charged with anything when he was given the pardon. So you have to wonder what was the pardon for? Just
Hmm.
a blanket, anything forever? Obviously, we know it had something to do with COVID origins and COVID this and COVID that and whatever. Why he would need to be pardoned, I don't know, unless it was something bad that was a crime. I mean, you don't pardon people because they did a good thing. You know,
Right.
so we know that bad things happened and that he probably did bad things, allegedly, possibly, sort of. But he was pardoned. But anyway, if he was pardoned, why plead the fifth? Because the only thing that you can be prosecuted on is, as far as I understand, unless the states prosecute you, the only thing you can be prosecuted on would be contempt. I guess some senators are wanting to bring up charges of contempt now on him, but also perjury. So
Yes.
that would mean that if I'm already pardoned, and then I plead the fifth, and perjury, as you know, is lying in court, then that means that I don't want to talk because what I'm going to say is probably a lie. Otherwise, why would I need to plead the fifth? I've already got a pardon. I should be able to just, you know, play all the greatest hits and do my thing.
Hmm.
So, so I find that to be odd. And ultimately, obviously, nothing's going to happen. And I'll prove it to you here. Nothing's going to happen. I have this. This is President Trump. I think this is yesterday, and he was asked about whether or not he's going to pursue uh, Biden's auto pen, particularly when it comes to the pardoning of Dr. Fauci. Let's check this out. I'll put this on the screen, maybe. Oh, okay. You want me to take that off? I see. All right. Here
Ah,
we go. Try that.
here we go.
Maybe I'd like that better. Here we go.
Well, the only thing you can really think about is the auto pen because the most powerful thing a president has, they say, is the power of pardon. So he was pardoned by Biden, and I respect that. I know how powerful it is. It's a very powerful. They say it's literally the most powerful thing a president has. Now, whether or not I sign my things directly, always, almost everything I sign directly. You're witness to many of them. He signed very few. The only thing I know that he signed was Hunter Biden's pardon, but I'm not sure that he signed. He probably didn't sign this one. So I can't tell you what the law is. I've heard that you have to have a lot of proof. You need to have letters. You need to have all sorts of things that the person operating the auto pen has to know exactly what it's all about. He didn't know what it was about because I saw him testify. So maybe there's something on the auto pen. Other than that, the power of pardon is very powerful.
So maybe there's something on the auto pen. Other than that, the power of pardon is a very powerful thing. So says President Trump. So nothing's going to happen. And once again, as we predicted, this doesn't matter. unless people are arrested, unless people go to prison, and no one is going to prison for anything. By the way, this comes off of what's interesting is, wasn't it just a couple of weeks ago, maybe it was a week ago, it seems like it was a year ago now, that President Trump went on national television, gave a primetime address laying out Chinese interference in the 2020 election, which would make Biden's presidency illegitimate if that were the case. But then that was quickly done away with once the news cycle was over. Then, the Fauci diaries, and then the news cycle was over, and then the Fauci hearing, and now the news cycle is over. But if he were serious about election interference, wouldn't he be looking into that auto pen? I mean, I don't understand what the point is of any of this stuff that we're doing. It almost makes me think, I don't want to get off topic because I want to get your take. And I have one other piece, Trump's Truth Social post I want to walk through, but I want to get your initial take on just this whole situation. Unless all this is a distraction for something else to keep us from looking at other things, and so let's start playing the hits. Let's do election integrity. Let's do stolen election. Let's do Dr. Fauci. Let's get everybody out there, because then the Republicans can look like they're fighting for us while they might be screwing us, and when I say us, I mean conservative voters, their own base. The Republican Party, the people who they screw are their own people every single time when they do. But anyway, RC, I want to get your take first off.
I wonder what level of chess this is, Andrew. People can pop in the comments. I mean, we're live, so you can please tell me what level of chess this is. Look, I think you're on with what you're saying. Here's the other thing that I've wondered about, and some people have asked me about, is in a very strange way, is President Trump trying to do this with the thinking that any pardons that he's provided or that he'll provide in the future before he gets out of office will be honored by the next person that takes the office? Like, are you playing nice for some reason? And of all people to play nice with, you may have picked the absolute worst person to do that. Listen, we've talked about this, Andrew, since election night 2024. If you don't codify it into law, it don't matter. It's just going to get flipped once the administration's changed. So whether or not you're doing this, you think it's a good idea. If the plan is that if I do this, they'll leave my people alone, make no mistake. Should the White House turn the other way, on Inauguration Day 2029, you will see the Night of the Long Knives come out for everyone that looks like an enemy.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but Emerald Robinson posted today on X. This is on the screen. I'm not sure. Hopefully you can see it. I'll try to make it a little bigger. Let me see if that helps.
There we go. It's a little bit bigger.
Okay. Just got a call. The White House is promising blanket pardons to everyone inside the Trump admin at the end of the term. That's why they have paused the Biden auto pen investigation. They're hoping Democrats will honor the pardons. Yes, it's true. That is from this morning, 10:59 a.m., Emerald Robinson. So, RC, your suspicion might not just hold water. Your suspicion might actually be the plan that we're making. And the thing is, it's so disgusting because, well, if that is accurate, Emerald Robinson's reporting it. She's a good reporter, one of the best in conservative media. Okay, she's got a source that says this. Well, then it is a uniparty, and they're all in on it, and they're all wiping each other's butts, and that's it. It doesn't matter what they do; they're going to get away with everything. And RC, I have a proposal. If I could speak English, I have a proposal. I want to move the capital, America's capital, to Alcatraz, and I want to take all of them over there and put them on that island, and then leave. We'll just leave, and they can play Survivor all they want over there, but they can do it with themselves and stop playing Survivor with our lives and our pocketbooks and our freedoms. Ridiculous.
I mean, I guess they could play Kings of the Lonely Anthill, but it'd probably be a good place for them. Andrew,
Lord of the Flies.
Yeah, Lord of the Flies. I mean, it's interesting that Emerald said that. I had not seen that from her this morning at all. I've kind of been heads down, but it's scary to think, one, that it's a uniparty, but two, that people are going to play fair. And here's the correlation that I'll make. In New York, Seattle, and it looks like some other places, you are quite literally getting Democratic socialists elected to office. Please don't think for 1 minute that if the White House turns in 2028, that on Inauguration Day 2029, the pressure will not be immense. And don't think that that pressure won't push to say, okay, look, we'll give some of them up just so we can distract you from the grift we're going to take. Because like you said, uniparty, whether it is progressives, liberals, or conservatives, they're all after the same grift. They're all eating from the same trough. But please make no mistake, they'll give up some scalps just to get the pressure off. Now, I want you to think about that for a second before we go to Trump's True Social. I want you to think about the size of the scalps that the other side of this could get from the Trump years, and the example that they would make of them, because that would give them precedent to come after anybody who even remotely agreed. Like we've said about Iran, Andrew, when you're in the ring with a bum, you need to knock them out in the first round or they'll hurt you. And once again, it seems like that message just isn't getting through.
When you have city councils arresting people who are speaking out against data centers, or arresting people for clapping for someone who was speaking out against data centers, you know that as soon as the people get in there who think they can get away with it, they will. I did want to show you this. I actually didn't mean to put this up, RC, early. It just, I'm using a trackpad and I accidentally tapped it and it came up and I just left it. But anyway, this is Donald Trump's Truth Social. This Truth Social came out just before Fauci's hearing. I found it interesting because Trump seems to be answering a bunch of objections or defending a bunch of things. And I don't know why he felt the need to defend anything. He wasn't the one in the hearing. It was Fauci. But he says, and I think this is the most important thing to come out of this, because we have to look, we have to, as we, RC, as you and I have said, we have to be, if we're going to have an America tomorrow for our kids, then we conservatives are going to have to be honest about those who are representing us and whether or not they actually are. We cannot have these rose-colored glasses and keep making these excuses. Oh, trust the plan, all the chess, or you're not seeing the full picture. Well, none of us are seeing the full picture, but we can certainly see the trends and we can recognize patterns. So Trump says many more people died of COVID under the Biden administration than the Trump administration. First of all, why start with that comparison? Why is that better? Second of all, how do you know? What numbers can you trust from any of that? And again, are we talking about the jab there? Well, of course, he wouldn't want to talk about the jab, but clearly that was the thing that was introduced. Or are we talking about hospitals not treating people, hospital protocols that hurt people and killed people that many believe did? I don't know. Then he goes on to say Operation Warp Speed was a spectacular success. No, it was not. That's a lie. In fact, many say it was one of the most successful things ever done by any American president. That is a lie. I'm sorry. That's just a lie. No one says that. 0 people. And then he says, I overrode Fauci on this. On Operation Warp Speed, I doubt it. His ideas were crazy, he says. Also, I said from the beginning that the virus came from the Wuhan laboratory in China. That's true. He did say that his instinct was accurate at the beginning. He also said it was a flu. He also, I remember in those daily afternoon briefings, you don't want the cure to be worse than the disease, when they were mulling over whether or not to shut down the country, which they ultimately did. He ultimately did. But so he was accurate in the beginning. Then he said Fauci strongly disagreed, always trying to protect China. So again, now we're harkening back to China. He's protecting China. I don't know that Fauci's protecting China as much as he's protecting his own tail. But, anyway. Then he says, I inherited Fauci, who was there since the 80s, but with each passing day relied less and less on him. So now he's passive. This is something that bothers me about President Trump. It was true in Trump's first term. It was my biggest criticism about him in his first term, and I supported him in the first term. And I thought his first 3 years were good overall. But he puts terrible people around him, and he keeps getting excuses for this. People keep making excuses for this. But he's the president of the United States. If Fauci's ideas were crazy, why don't you fire him?
The buck stops here.
I mean, honestly, he was the one that platformed him. He was the one that pretty much turned the keys turned the keys to the country over to Fauci. Why didn't he put a stop to it right there? You know, instead of, he inherited. So does that mean that he had to carry him the whole time? There was nothing he could do? I'm sorry. He certainly did a lot to Thomas Massey, Marjorie Taylor Greene, other people that aren't wanted certain files released from a certain person who may or may not have killed himself. But I digress.
Mhm.
Then he says he relied on him less and less. Well, what who were you relying on then? Who were you relying on? Because Fauci sure was on TV every day, all the time, and
Every
4
day.
or 5 times on Sundays.
Mm-hmm.
Then he says he, being Fauci, made too many bad calls, like on masks. Remember, in the beginning, he was anti-masker, then he switched to a super-masker. In any event, I didn't let him shut the country down, although he wanted to. No, you did shut the country down. It was 2 weeks to slow the spread. You announced that. Then it was 4 weeks to slow the spread. Then it was 45 days, 60 days. And then we went into months, so on and so forth. Then he said, I went the Federalist way and let the governors decide. Okay, kind of, except you remember when Brian Kemp, governor of Georgia, opened Georgia? And who got mad at Brian Kemp? That was President Trump. To the degree that President Trump then inserted himself in the Senate races there. And by the way, GOP lost both of them. The Republican governors did a much better job than the Democrats. Okay, the ones that did well, yeah, were Republicans, but not all the Republican governors. DeWine in Ohio is aptly named. Fauci was largely taken out of play, and then along came Sleepy Joe Biden. Fauci was not out of play. He brought in Scott Atlas at the very end, which many conservatives were saying, please, he's speaking some sense into this. Atlas and Fauci, from what I could tell, did not get along very well and didn't see things eye to eye. Fauci definitely maintained control. He wasn't taken out of play. And then comes Sleepy Joe, who made Fauci a king. No, Fauci was already sitting on the throne before Joe got there. I called Biden to tell him Fauci was no good, either didn't have a clue or was dishonest. Here again, why didn't you fire him? This is what I want to understand about Trump. You keep all these people around you who suck, and you keep appointing people who suck, and you keep endorsing people who suck. So and you can't be a victim and be the greatest president the world has ever seen at the same time.
Right. Can't be a victim and a hero at the same time.
You can't. So either, pick one or the other. And then he wraps it up. He says, the call was well received, but sadly not acted on. Biden went on to give Fauci vast destructive power. The rest is history. Most of that destruction happened, got its hooks in year 4 of the Trump administration, Trump 1.0. Not to mention, on January 19th of 2021, this crazy guy with terrible ideas, who's dishonest, who's bad at his job, who makes bad calls, who flip-flops on masks, et cetera, Trump gave him an award on January 19th of 2021. Gave him an award, sung his praises, said he was a great guy, and was thankful for the work that he did. So, this to me is the most significant thing to come out of this because it just shows, to me, it shows the depth of the grift, the depth of the uniparty, as we talked about. It shows the heights, the lengths in which President Trump himself will go to try to gaslight us as if we weren't there, watching all this stuff unfold, seeing it in real time. At the beginning of COVID, I give everybody a pass because who knew what was going on? Was this virus really Captain Trips and it's just time to put your head between your knees and say goodbye? We had no idea at the beginning. And so even the first 2 weeks, I don't necessarily fault him for that because you don't know.
Right.
You don't know where you are in the bell curve. There's so many things. So yeah, okay, let's take a minute and try to figure out what's going on. But very quickly, and we know from Fauci's diaries, we also know from emails that have been released, so on and so forth, that whole Peter Daszak, Eco Health Alliance, Wuhan Lab crew, they all knew what was going on and what was happening and why, and they worked hard to cover it up and obfuscate and everything else. But again, the fact that President Trump felt like he needed to come out and be that defensive and try to throw Fauci under the bus, does he think that he needs to do that because he feels, I don't know that he feels responsible, because I'm not sure that he does anything but take credit, because he certainly won't take blame. But he might be trying to rebut somebody like me who's saying, no, wait a minute, that's revisionist history. That's not what happened. And here's the thing, I'd be fine extending him, an olive branch if you just be honest. But if you're going to keep lying and trying to cover up the deuce you just dropped on the lawn, well, then I'm going to be even stricter about it, because you keep erring on that side of things, and that side of things is not liberty, it's not freedom, and it's not moving the country in a direction that I think is good for it.
Man, thank you for your prompt attention to this matter, Andrew. I'm surprised our love letter didn't end with that. I lost my mic for a second. So there I am. So
you bet.
Very distinct pattern, right? And I'm with you. It's like, why didn't you fire him when you had the chance? Why the need to even put out something like this? It's like, next you're going to tell us what a great idea warp speed was. Oh, wait. So, absolutely no need to put that out. Why are you doing that? Why are you trying to distance yourself when the entire world can go anywhere online and see exactly what happened every day during that period with their own eyes? Sad trend.
Well, it looks like we lost you a little bit here. Now you're coming back. Sad trend we got. What did you say after that? Nope.
I seem to have a connection thing going on with my mic and everything. What I was going to say is sad trend.
Yeah.
This is even happening, right? But we are consistent again. And there are people that are going to eat this up and not be willing to even answer or address the hard questions about in what world does any of this foolishness make sense? What are we being distracted from?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it really seems like playing the hits. But again, you have to look around. Did you see they are talking and game theorying what a draft would look like in a nuclear World War III? I'm not sure if you caught that. Again, you got the stuff going on with Iran. You've got the data centers being forced upon us. You've got all the surveillance cameras being forced upon us. You have a K-shaped economy where only those who can afford to participate in the stock market are doing well. The rest of us, good luck. And probably in some cases, our betters are probably saying good riddance if they can get rid of us. But when you look at all those things, it sure makes you. It's hard for that conspiracy theorist not to come out and say, you're wanting us to look over here because what's going on under the hood isn't any good. Now, all this leads up to something I think we've been talking about for quite a while, RC, on this program, on the Sunday show. Let's see, well, on to this one, I think. Yeah. Fox News. And I bring this up because it's Fox News. This is the trumpet. This is the conservative, boomer mecca, right? Look at these numbers. And look at this polling. Democrat Party blue, Republican Party red. Look at all of them. You have income inequality. That makes sense. And health care for Democrats. Now, obviously, income inequality is just, is a redistribution of wealth. So is health care. So obviously the Democrats are going to win there because they're for that. But then you have inflation, prices, and the economy.
Wow.
Where the Democrats do better. Now, here's the thing. The economy, income inequality, and healthcare are all reasons why we have inflation and prices the way they are. But so there is a cognitive dissonance, but nonetheless, even on the economy, and it's 53 and 54%. Foreign policy, government spending, and immigration all above 50% for Democrats. National security and crime are the only two things that the Republicans are barely in front with, barely in front. I don't know. I don't know that this means people are flocking to Democrats because, again, I think people are waking up to the two-party system, and maybe we're seeing some of the same concerns that some of the founders had with a two-party system and warned against setting that up when back in the day, and maybe we're seeing the reason why now. But I don't see how a poll like this, taken from a conservative friendly outlet, looks good 3 months from now on November 3rd.
Wow, interesting. Interesting look here. And again, yeah, I mean, you take it with a grain of salt, but interesting trend. I do believe, Andrew, that awakening to the two-party system, the uniparty, two wings of the same bird, well, whatever flavor you like, kind of bores out here, right? Where people are they get so frustrated that they're just like, you know what? It's the same thing that President Trump told people when he was running the first time. What do you got to lose? Right? Well, now that table gets turned and it's like, what do you got to lose? We were driving earlier this week and, it's campaign season, obviously. So at every intersection where nobody owns it, there are a ton of signs. And I caught one as we were turning right. And it was someone who, I guess by all accounts, is an MPA technically, but you could tell, obviously, a Democrat by the message. But here's what was interesting. They asked a very easy question. Are you better off than you were 4 years ago? And I'm like, did they just pull a Reagan on us? And they did. And it's like, wow, that's actually, if you're the opposition, that's a really good question to ask people right now. Yeah. And part of that may bore out in this, Andrew. Like, if people are being honest, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Well, I mean, I'm not locked down, so I guess that's okay. But other than that, no, it is harder to live. It is more expensive to live. It's harder, like we own businesses. It's harder to get and keep business because everybody is struggling with something, right? Outside of a very few, most people are struggling.
Yeah, and what we voted for was we wanted the crazy to stop. We wanted to get back to the normalcy. We were trying to get back to Trump 1.0 years 1, 2, and 3, especially with the economy. That's exactly where we wanted to go. And we got more Biden era spending by this GOP and this administration. We got wars we didn't want and didn't ask for and not sure what we're doing there still. Some were saying that the pause in military strikes was because our munition supply is actually getting too low. I don't know if you read that report.
I did.
I mean, Okay.
Who's in charge? Yeah. Who's on first? What's on second?
Seem like that.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. Is on third, and I don't know as I think also the manager. Sometimes, man alive, but yeah. So when you look at that, you look at all the metrics, and no, it's not better. Even national security and crime. I think that's mostly due to the messaging. Republicans were strong, particularly on national security, and that's one of the big reasons why Trump was elected the first time. But when you see the open borders, and then you see the and while they are closed, the flow isn't as much. We're not deporting. We're in fact we're actively finding ways to not deport. So, including an up to the birthright citizenship ruling from SCOTUS recently. So, now you're having that crime. You've got activist judges letting criminals out just because, I don't know, so they can go get some ice cream, I guess, and feel better. But so we've got systemic rot in our judicial system that is working against the GOP work on that, which is something that the GOP would normally be good at. But then the GOP is also acquiescing to the courts. Every time the courts say it, they just go ahead and bow their heads and say, yes, sir, no, sir, may I have another. And there's no fight. And again, that's where I go back to, well, if the GOP is not fighting this, then I have to think, because politicians are not, we know that today's politicians are not in it for the good of the American people. They're in it to get what they want. If they're not fighting it, that means there is a greater benefit to them for allowing this chaos and destruction than there would be to stop it. And that to me is one of the most frightening things, because, like we talked about a couple of days ago, what my concern is that we are putting in all this infrastructure that the real tyrants are going to use to really round us up and keep a tight leash. And I hate the fact that we're the ones giving them the ability to do that.
Man, a republic if you can keep it. Boy, those words from
Right.
Ben Franklin have never rang more true. Look, Andrew, we talk about this all the time on the show. We talk about it with Watchmen Action Training. You're going to need to step into the self-governing chapter of society in this book, because you're there now and you're going to have to get active. Look, here's the deal. Yes, you need to call and you need to email and you need to melt down the switchboards of your representatives and keep pressure on them to get the things that you want. But here's the other thing you need to do. If there are 10 of you, you need 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 of you. How do you do that? You got to be able to tell your story, so it's got to be succinct enough for people to follow. You got to be able to organize and mobilize these people based on their strengths, and you got to be able to measure your success. That formula is straightforward. People can go to watchmanaction.org to see that. We put it up there along with the training. The reason I'm sharing that is that the solution is simple, but it's not easy. And the not easy part is because we've become so comfortable with inaction that it's just our default. And we're like, well, I'll get to it tomorrow. I'll do this. I'll do that. I'll do this. I'll do that. We'll procrastinate ourselves right out of a constitutional republic, Andrew. And I don't know that it's quite hit people yet. And we've said this before, and I hate to even say it, but it is true. I think we're in a situation where we need one of those catastrophic disasters to shake people awake and back into reality and say, oh, I think I should do something to get my people together. Like you have to be smacked up across the head, like at the fish market in Seattle with a gigantic fish, to be shaken awake. I mean, short of that, I don't know what else we can do.
I don't know if it's a disaster that we need, because I think there's too many conditions. We just saw it with COVID, 80% will comply.
Yep.
I think the disaster will bring more compliance. I think what would bring the wake up is the tyranny that follows the disaster, is the recipe for dealing with the disaster, or just a recipe for having that ability in the first place. But again, that's a place I don't want to go. But I don't know how. I don't know what more we can do. Just more of us need to keep shining a light on these things. And again, I think we have to be honest with ourselves about how our representatives on our side of the aisle, so to speak, how they are not representing us and have not for some time. And until we're willing to stop being hypnotized by the deity and wonder of Trump and Trump 2.0 and Trump administration, if we keep making excuses for him, he's going to keep doing it. So.
Boy, Andrew, we'd be well served, just quickly, biblically speaking, we'd be well served to go to 2 Chronicles 20 and read the story of King Asa when it comes to idolatry. Boy, we need to get off that horse real quick, because the reason that we feel pain is because we choose for someone else or something else to be God instead of the boss. And this is what you get.
Mm-hmm. And you know what this is? You know what reality we're living in right now? We're living in the emperor has no clothes. And except we're not the cons who are making the emperor look and act foolish. We're in the crowd, and we see most of the crowd marveling at the emperor's no clothes. And we're saying, wait a minute, he's not wearing clothes. So, but that's really, I think that's where we are right now. I don't know what shakes out. It'll be interesting what happens. I think the midterms will tell us a little bit, but anyway, RC, is there anything that you want to touch on before we wrap for today?
Yeah, Andrew, two quick things. I want to remind people the piece that we did on We Are the Watchmen Weekly about AI companies buying up and destroying books. That story is now gaining a lot of traction. You're probably seeing a whole lot of it. If you haven't seen it on TV yet, you likely will soon. We Are the Watchmen Weekly was one of the first to cover that story and also look at it through a biblical worldview lens. We also have a piece coming up over the weekend, Andrew, on Rip from the Headlines, a story from Politico that we're going to deep dive into about how the tech bros and AI oligarchs really don't care about the people. And they're happy to admit it. They don't care. And they've got a much bigger plan, one we've talked about on this show, on Culture Crossroads and the Watchmen Brief a lot. That's coming up this weekend. Both are certainly worth reading, Andrew, and people can catch the Spin Cycle, also Culture Crossroads, on the Watchmen Action Network. It's on the Beck Cable Network, Channel 40 in North Dakota, also streaming on Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, and all those other places.
There you have it. Thanks to all of you for tuning in, whether for a minute or for the whole time, or whether later on. If you're watching on one of our platforms, please like or subscribe or sign up or member or whatever the thing is that you're supposed to do on the particular channel that changes by the day. But we appreciate you doing that. And we will aim for tomorrow. It'll likely be a little earlier in the day if we can. But again, since I'm traveling, it makes it a little bit difficult, but we will try to get out tomorrow, and maybe we can preview that news story from Watchmen Brief, possibly, if they're willing to share a morsel or two for those of us here in the cheap seats. All right. For R.C. Williams, I'm Andrew Southwick. This has been the Spin Cycle. Thanks for checking us out. We'll see you next time.